Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, High Risk for Heartbreak. I am your host, Christina, and I'm so glad you decided to join me today. For those of you who are new here, I pray you find value in at least one thing I say today. And to my old and faithful returning crew, you know just how much I appreciate you. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. A great friend of mine and I were having our weekly feedback session as she gives me each week on the podcast. And she's very much a faithful watcher and listener and has actually been a guest on the show. She is one of my biggest encouragers and I just always appreciate her so much. But she was talking about how this series, Builders, Breakers, and Engineers, has really opened up her eyes to some things. And she brought up a couple of things that really resonated with her about the last two episodes. And actually the conversation we were having inspired today's episode. It inspired me. So I had not intended to speak again on this topic of builders, breakers, and engineers because I thought it was done, but I definitely heed the spirit. And when the spirit is moving, I respond. Through this conversation, my eyes were open as well to a couple of things that I do want to share with you today about builders, breakers, and engineers. So join me for this installment number 3 of Builders, Breakers, and Engineers, the series. So without further ado, let's relate. What we have established is that being a builder means that you are extremely creative. You are masterful at ideation, dreaming, and even erecting your imaginings. Generally, you build from inspiration, but not always with a purpose to make use of the things that you build. I know that sounds strange for a lot of people, but I am a builder and I know a builder well. You are sort of this sojourner of this creative process and you appreciate the problem solving that comes with it and the spontaneous speed bumps that you encounter along the way, but it ultimately pays off when you see what you imagined being fully realized. The fullness of that realization for many stops right there, of course, and then it's just on to the next creative endeavor, trying to figure out exactly what will be next. Oftentimes, there's no purpose, though, that is attached to any of these things, and that purpose almost never is attached to what you're ideating or creating. Now, this makes me think about this time as a young elementary school girl when I was a master at paper mache making. Okay, do you guys remember? Maybe you don't. You might be too young and they may not be doing that in art class anymore. But we have this thing called paper mache. If you don't know what it is, take a look. You can Google it, find some paper mache. It's actually very fun. It's messy, but it's such a wonderful creative endeavor. I made this life-size paper mache Dalmatian from paper towel rolls and some other stuff. And I did it all the way through. I painted the entire thing. So imagine a humongous, it was very big, Dalmatian from start to finish, okay? I was really proud of this creation and it was definitely my best one yet, okay? So my mom was in the kitchen cooking Sunday dinner and my parents both cook and usually will cook together. My dad does some stuff, my mom does some stuff. And really Sunday dinner was a family affair. We all were cooking usually on Sunday or doing some sort of prep or something like this. But by this time, my dad was in the living room watching Sunday football. And I propped this huge Dalmatian up against the piano, which was in the dining room. So the kitchen is here, the living room is here, and the dining room is in the middle. So I propped it in the dining room. You'd be able to see it from the living room and from the kitchen. Now, my mom had already saw it, and she gave me my words of affirmation, which, surprise, surprise, is one of my top love languages, is the top love language of mine. So, of course, I got what I needed from her. And so then I looked at my dad, and I said, Daddy, look. Like I wanted him to see this creation that I made. And he just was so locked in to the football game. He never looked. I called Daddy multiple times, okay? He never looked at me. I don't even know. I'm sure he saw the Dalmatian afterwards. But in that moment when I needed him as a young girl to look, he did not. Whether or not my dad could hear me is still out for the jury to decide. But 2 things I know. Firstly, that this moment was not memorable for my dad at all. He does not remember it. We've had a conversation about it. I was trying to get his attention and he no. But secondly, it was very much a significant memory for me. It is a significant moment of father, daughter, daughter, father relating that I will literally remember for the rest of my life. And I think that if there's a story that someone would ask of me to describe an acute moment where my need for significance was not met, it would be that moment. Like if they were to say, what was a really defining moment, which my therapist, mentor, coach does this all the time. He's like, which moment could that be? And some moments I am able to pick out, but for sure, if I were asked this question, when did you feel like your significance was in question? As a child, it would very much be the first moment. Now, there's some other moments as well that are pretty significant as well. But when it comes to my relationship with my dad, this would be a very, very defining moment for me. And it is also a way that I kind of still concern myself with my significance today. That is actually one of my greatest needs, is a need for significance. I'm wondering if I was already an engineer by this point in time as a young girl, and if because the affirmation that I was seeking was not, the need for affirmation that I was seeking was not met in that moment, if it kind of forced me back into this space of, one, feeling like my creations are not significant enough to be acknowledged, but also two, that they're safer when I just create and then abandon versus create, promote, give purpose to, etc. Okay, this is a very big tangent. Okay, this is not even what this podcast episode is about. We may have to talk about significance and the impact of that because that's just a whole other thing. But it may be a long shot, of course, what I'm saying. But I have definitely always been a creative girl and very creative. But I don't think really there was a lot of like follow through to promote myself or anything like that. And it could have just been the way that I was raised, right? But I'm just wondering if that moment impacted me in that way. But anyway, back to the conversation that my good friend and I were having about builders, breakers, and engineers. Builders are capable of having really quality relationships when the ingredients are harmonious. They are capable of building something great with another person. But of course, there are dangers when, you have a builder who's creating a relationship with another builder, or worse, a breaker. Okay. So we're going to talk about the engineer as well, but let's talk about the builder first. Okay. I'm going to list a few things that I think, or a couple things, I think it's like only three that are dangerous that I think we should look out for when you are a builder or an engineer, when you are in relationship with the respective. Okay. Number one, endless creating. Now, this would be for a builder with another builder. And I know it sounds really great because here you guys are just going off of each other, tossing ideas back and forth. But I really want to talk about what this looks like relationally. It is endless creating from both parties without any follow through, without solidifying any plans, without pinning down a date, without executing on a creative future that you have imagined and talked through. It literally will be stagnating to the people that are in relationship with each other. And I can look back at some of my best collaborations, and they were always with an engineer. Okay, not another builder. When I was with the builder, it was like us having a round table of mind meeting. Okay, and there is a very good space for that. That's a necessary space. However, what an engineer did for me was help to timekeep, help to create boundaries within the process. They would have a lot less grace in a healthy way, but they'd have a lot less grace. They would be holding us accountable to maximizing the efforts of what we just created, right? They didn't want it to stop with just the creation. They are the difference between having a savings account that charges you and having a high yield savings account that invests in you, okay? A builder and an engineer really are a beautiful match if the builder is willing to see things through, okay? They have to be willing to submit to some of the things that the engineer is going to give them. Now, a couple of drawbacks would be pressure to maximize everything created, because I think engineers can be very much on that brain, and everything doesn't have to become something. I come from a school of thought that every creation does not have to 10x, okay? Some things are just for us to release. Some things are just for us to therapize, to kind of release some of these thoughts and allow the flow state to come. Every creation does not have to end up with a P&L statement. God does tell us to be fruitful and multiply and write the vision and make it plain so that others can run with it. But he also tells us that the steps of man are established by him. And I would even go as far as to say for the builder that every idea is not a God idea. Everything does not need to be made manifest. Okay, I know we have a lot of great ideas, but as we grow in wisdom, we can better discern what God is actually calling out of us, what's necessary, and the things that are not necessary. And that goes for services, businesses, relationships, etc. And from that, then we better know how to partner ourselves with the proper type of engineer who, or relational partner, right? Who will be able to help us on this mission that we have at hand. Okay. Number 2 is pouring into a bottomless pit. Okay. Now this is obviously going to be a builder with a breaker. Okay. A builder with a breaker is probably one of the more devastating examples. Like my examples from the first episode of this series, there is nothing quite as frustrating as imagining something, building it up to what you planned, or maybe even better, and having someone you care about knock it down like it means nothing. A builder with a breaker is going to see consistent upset like this, okay? They will speak life into their relational partner. They will try to create memories with them. They will try to collaborate with them and please them and empathize with them more and more. And I would say a builder who is in a good state spiritually and mentally, have like a good state of health, will probably express tirelessly their desires to connect. They will put in a bid after bid for connection only to be met with resistance, which could look like negativity or negating the positives when you're in a conversation with someone and they constantly are thwarting you or ending the conversation. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, where you'll say something positive and they'll say, no, it's not that, or or, like they just, there's a term for it within the improv community, but basically, you would be like ending the conversation because you don't allow it to flow with exchange. You just kind of thwart it or stop it. They also may be pessimistic. They may have kind of an unhopeful outlook on life. They may be cynical, just super skeptical and not trusting. They may be on the defense all the time, just ready to fight. They may be judgmental, very critical of you, of themselves, of others. Everything is everyone else's fault. They may be very mood swingy, okay, unstable emotionally and willing to kind of take you on that ride with them to get their point across and bait you for that too. They're probably non-compliant, maybe have an issue with authority. I know some of this is ringing some bells for you guys. When I look at breakers, I can identify a few people in my life that are like this, and man, we love them, but wow, okay? They can be rebellious for the sake of non-submission, right? They just are rebellious because of being rebellious. They're very self-centering versus teaming with people or collaborative. And then they're controlling, right? They like to control what you do and everyone else as well around them, because it helps them to feel safe. They may be unpredictable. I have more. There's so many. They may be unpredictable. Like instability feels more familiar to them than having certainty. A builder with a breaker is sure to suffer very much within that type of relationship. And it really is like pouring into a bottomless cup. Everything is taut and nothing is caught. Lastly, number 3 is engineers will invest their efforts. And I dare to say they'll overinvest their efforts. So this would be an engineer with a breaker, okay? Because engineers are people who have mastered the better qualities of both worlds, right? Being a builder and being a breaker. They might find empathy with the breaker as the builder does as well. And the difference is an engineer will try to rework their relationships with them ad nauseum. An engineer's ability to recognize areas of opportunity to pour into others is a very beautiful quality to have that I think at times might not come with the type of bottleneck that it actually needs. A bottleneck, if you look at the top of a bottle, the cap is smaller than the rest of the bottle, and there's a reason, so it doesn't just flood your face, right? You need that bottleneck when you are with a breaker as an engineer and as a builder. And I think that engineers probably have less of that. They see the opportunities with that person. If it's for growth, with that relational partner, they will want to seize that opportunity because they see it. When something is broken, they'll want to fix it because they're the ultimate problem solver, solution oriented, they're innovative. Engineers will work systems over and over until failure so that they can see how to improve them. And I think about my brother, who is an engineer. My sister-in-law also is an engineer. And one of the things is my brother has always been great with problem solving, tinkering, and finding issues. I could call him today, and if something is wrong with my computer or some type of tech piece, he could give me codes. He could help me troubleshoot and or recommend a solution without much effort from him, right? And that is an engineer. But remember, they're problem solvers because they understand both strengths, building and breaking. They understand the necessity for the things to fail for improvement. And I really want you guys to hear me. They understand that things have to fail for them to be able to be innovated on and improved. Someone who understands the necessity of failure for improvement is a force to be reckoned with and also can be hurt relationally because of the same school of thought. They will pour and build, be broken, repair, be broken, troubleshoot, be broken, rebuild, offer solutions, alternative options, be broken, and then build again. Their greatest strength is their understanding of both worlds, and that equally delivers them into the hands of perpetual heartbreak. While I could classify myself as more of a builder, and do, I think, than an engineer, there are definitely some bleeding qualities that I can say without a shadow of doubt builders also have as well if you are in relationship with a breaker. And they probably, both of those parties, builders and engineers, have a high threshold for upset. Sorry, guys. I know I do. One of my top spiritual gifts is mercy showing. That allows me to be around people who are quite broken and be able to still have grace and mercy for them because I understand the grace and mercy, the inflow that God gives me. And that is an area, that I'm just gifted in. And, I empathize easily and, I'm able to connect with people on those things. However, that gift, when there's not a proper bottleneck or proper filter, will allow heartbreak to come back again and again if we're not careful, because who else is going to help these people? Okay? But we must understand, especially for the engineers, hear me out. God did not give you the job to fix everything and everyone. There are people that you must lay at his feet. You must surrender to him because you can't override, recode, or troubleshoot them out of being the breaker that they are. Only God can do that. Engineers, you have to be careful of becoming the God of a breaker. Be careful. Now, we aren't to neglect to do good, Hebrews 13:16 says, because the sacrifices that you have made are pleasing to God. But remember, our Father also wants us to act with wisdom. And if that breaker has caused you to sacrifice peace that God gives you, dignity that God instilled in you, fruitfulness that God imbued you with, you might need to ask God to also help you release them. If you are tempted out of your character, crying the same tears over and over the same issues, by all means, give them to God, but do not let that become a master of you. The tears, the constant state of fixing and repair, please don't let that become a master of you. Stop wearing your wounds like a badge. They may be a testimony. Our wounds or scars, should I say, are testimonies, but they're not badges. They're not an honorable mention. The Bible says, but let your adorning be the hidden person of the heart. That's 1 Peter 3:4. What is the heart of the engineer actually seeking? Is it inner beauty of being able to maximize what God commissioned you to multiply? Or must you wear this external badge of wounds, of the battle that you are encountering with these breakers in your life? The validation of the breaker does not matter. Their fish are so much bigger to fry. So engineers, don't kill yourself for them to finally see you. Yes, you have this relatability, but how is that edifying and exhorting both of you? And I say all of this with a heart of mercy, knowing that good and well, it is a pain point and a struggle of mine to leave breakers where they are. That's really hard for me. It's hard for me to watch people struggle and not want to build them up, not want to edify and exhort them. But builders and engineers, you can only participate in that to a point before you find yourself chipped away, left to rebuild the vision that once was so beautiful to you. If that has already happened to you, if you've already had heartbreaks at the hands of a breaker, and you find yourself in a perpetual cycle, or you notice that this is a pattern in your life, that you choose those people, that you like projects, I know. It is time that you relinquish that to God. I implore you not to keep replaying those daddy look moments. You don't need to replay those with every person that you meet. Every person is not your daddy. Every person is not your mother, your friend. And it's time that we heal those wounds. It's time that we understand there's only one person who can actually fill those wounds. Whether they were intentionally done by the people that we loved or not, only God can heal those wounds. Only God can heal the wounds that the breaker carries, that they dish out to everyone else. Only God can heal the wounds of the engineer that is sustained in their loyalty of fixing. Only God can heal the builder. Well, I do think this is the final episode, although this has given me some inspiration for some other things that were talked about today. But I really do hope that you guys enjoyed this series with this little extra additional episode, and I pray that it did bless you in a mighty way. As always, of course, I want to thank you guys for allowing me to offload my thoughts, my creations, my revelations. And I hope that there's at least one thing that you were able to glean from this, okay? As always, I want you to remember to love yourself first so you can then go and love your neighbor. Until next time.